Hey guys! Welcome back to the Bible Project. In this episode, we're going to look at the story of Deborah, Barak, and Jael. As always, we're going to get some background, see how this story fits into the big picture, meet the main players, and then consider what it all means for us today. So let's start with some background. This is the first and only time in the Old Testament when a woman serves as a judge over the people of Israel. She was also a prophetess and is celebrated in the famous song of Deborah. Deborah's name even means be or she who is poor. And so it's interesting that this strong female leader was named after something so tiny and seemingly insignificant. During Deborah's time, the nation of Israel was being oppressed by the Canaanites, who lived in the lowlands to the south of the mountains of Israel. The king of Canaan was named Jabin, and he ruled over his empire from his capital city, Hazor. Under his command was an evil military officer named Sisera, who was stationed in the northern part of Canaan in the valley of the Kishon. For 20 long years, Sisera led the Canaanite army and oppressed the Israelites. And the Bible says that the Israelites cried out to God because of their oppression. And now we can pause for a moment and think about why such a small nation as Israel would be subject to the rule of neighboring empires like Canaan. You see, after Joseph's family, who we met in the previous episode, settled in Egypt, and eventually became slaves there, the Israelites migrated out of Egypt back into the land of Canaan, which we know today as Israel. But they never really took full possession of the land. Instead, they lived among the Canaanites and other surrounding nations, which caused problems because these surrounding nations did not want the Israelites living on their land. And so often the Israelites were forced to be subject to the rules and laws of their more powerful neighbors. Now, the second main character of our story is the young warrior Barak ben Simon, who was from the tribe of Naphtali. One day, God told Deborah to summon Barak to go and fight against King Jabin of Canaan and defeat his commander, Sisera. So Deborah went and found Barak and told him that God had given them the victory over the Canaanites. But she said that unfortunately, the honor of killing Sisera would not go to Barak. Instead, it would go to a woman. Now, when Deborah told Barak that God wanted him to go to battle, he agreed. But he told Deborah that he would only go to battle if she went with him. In Judges chapter 12 verses 11 to 12, it says, "Then Deborah said to Barak, 'Rise, for this is your march. I will go with you.'" So, apparently, Barak was basically saying, "I need you to come with me because I need your faith. I need you to pray for me, bless me and lead me in battle." Now, this may sound a bit strange, especially since Barak was a man and a warrior. But remember, in those days, women could and sometimes did serve as prophets and leaders in Israel. And God often used women in surprising ways. Deborah, for example, was a prophetess and judge, which meant that she had spiritual authority as well as political and judicial authority. And we'll see in just a minute how brave and strong she really was. Anyways, Barak and Deborah assembled 10,000 troops and camped out at the base of a mountain called Mount Tabor. Now, according to history professor Thomas L. Thompson, this mountain was strategically important because it was the lowest pass between Galilee in the north and the lowland plains in the south. And so controlling this mountain pass was vital for military purposes. And now here's where things get really interesting. When Deborah saw that Sisera and his army were approaching, she told Barak to get up early in the morning before the sun was up and attack the unsuspecting Canaanites. Then the Bible says that God gave Barak and the Israelites a great victory over Sisera and the Canaanites. The Israelite army defeated the Canaanite army, and they chased them all the way down to the valley of the Kishon River, where many of the Canaanite soldiers drowned. After the battle, Sisera was nowhere to be found. However, Deborah's prophecy still had to be fulfilled that the honor of defeating Sisera would not go to Barak, but instead would go to a woman. And so while Deborah and Barak were waiting for Sisera to show himself, they sat under the shade of a palm tree near the banks of the Kishon River. Then suddenly, Sisera came running toward them, and he was on foot. He must have taken off his armor and discarded it during the battle, and he had probably been running for his life ever since. As he approached Deborah and Barak, he asked them for water, and they offered him milk instead. Now, most likely, Deborah knew that Sisera was coming, and she was actually expecting him. We know that she was a prophetess, and so perhaps God showed her a vision of what would happen next. When Sisera was done drinking the milk, he leaned back against the palm tree to rest, and he soon fell fast asleep. And while he was sleeping, Deborah remembered what God had told her about Sisera, and she knew that the time had come for her to fulfill her prophecy. And so she called for a young woman named Jael, who was the wife of Heber, the Kenite. Heber was not an Israelite, but he was an ally of Israel. His wife, Jael, was known as a woman of valor because of her faith and obedience to God. Jael came to Deborah and asked her, "Is everything okay? Why did you call me?" And Deborah responded by saying, "Come, I will show you a man. Look, he is lying here fast asleep. Now, Jael, you take a tent peg and go and hit the tent peg into his temple. Surely he will die." And so Jael took the peg, took it to the head of Sisera, and drove the peg right through his temple all the way into the ground. And Sisera immediately died. Now, Jael could have easily killed Sisera with a sword or a spear, but she didn't. Instead, she used a common household object, a tent peg, which shows how vulnerable Sisera was and how weak he was when he decided to trust Jael and fall asleep in her tent. Now, the author of Judges wrote that Jael's action saved Israel from the power of Jabin, the king of Canaan, and from the power of his army commander, Sisera. By killing Sisera, Jael brought freedom and deliverance to the Israelites. In celebration of their victory, Deborah and Barak sang a song together praising God for delivering Israel from their oppressors. This song, known as the Song of Deborah, celebrates God as judgment against the Canaanites, and it celebrates Jael as a courageous woman who brought freedom to Israel. In the song, Deborah praises Jael and calls her blessed above all women, and she says that in the assembly of women, Jael's name will be praised. So while it may seem that Jael is a minor character in the story, her bravery and willingness to obey God's call made her an important hero in the story. Lastly, let's think about what this story means for us today. There are several lessons we can learn from the story of Deborah, Barak, and Jael. First, God often chooses to deliver his people through unlikely heroes. Deborah was a woman. Barak was afraid to go to battle without Deborah, and Jael was just an ordinary woman whose name means mountain goat, a small defenseless animal. Yet God used each of these unlikely heroes to accomplish his mission. Second, God frequently works through those who are willing to be used by him. Jael could have ignored Deborah's requests, but she chose to obey. And in doing so, she became an important part of God's plan. Third, God desires to use ordinary people to accomplish his extraordinary purposes. And finally, trusting God in the midst of fear and uncertainty can lead to great victories. Barak was afraid to go to battle, but he trusted Deborah's faith and God's promise, and they won a great victory together. So, guys, what do you think? What stands out to you from this story? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to our channel and share this video with others. Thanks for watching.